Get out of my diner. Sarah Mitchell's voice cracked like a whip. Two cops froze. The Hell's Angel behind her didn't move, didn't breathe. Oh. You're making a big mistake, Officer Crawford hissed. His hand dropped to his gun. No. Sarah stepped forward. You are. That moment destroyed her life. Customers vanished. Windows shattered. Death threats piled up. 24 hours later, 200 motorcycles surrounded Carter's diner. 200 Hell's Angels. 200 leather jackets blocking out the sun. The town held its breath, waiting for blood. But the giant biker at the front didn't raise his fist. He knelt and said 3 words that changed everything. Subscribe now. Comment your city below. This story will break your heart, then put it back together. The coffee pot exploded against the floor. Sarah Mitchell didn't move. Couldn't move. Her eyes locked on the man filling her doorway, 6'4", black leather tattoos crawling up his neck like vines choking a dying tree. But the tattoos didn't freeze her blood. The patch did. Death's head, grinning skull, white stitching on black leather, Hell's Angels. Sweet Jesus. Mrs. Patterson gasped from booth 4. Her coffee cup crashed into its saucer. Oh, sweet Jesus, no. Every head in Carter's diner turned. Every conversation died. Even the ceiling fan seemed to stop like the whole building was holding its breath. Sarah's hands shook. Coffee and glass pooled around her sneakers. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she thought it might crack them. The biker stood there, waiting. His shoulders hunched slightly, like he was trying to fold himself smaller. His eyes scanned the room, not aggressive, not threatening. Tired, just tired. Sarah. Old Tom Jenkins grabbed her wrist from his counter seat. His fingers dug in hard enough to bruise. Don't you dare. Tell him we're closed. Tell him anything. But don't you serve that man. Sarah blinked, looked down at Tom, 73 years old, retired postman, eggs and bacon every morning for 11 years straight. His face had gone white as chalk. Tom, I can't just... You can. His grip tightened. You don't know what those people do, what they are. Send him away, Sarah, now. Fipri, the biker, still hadn't moved. Sarah's grandfather's voice hit her like a slap. Everyone deserves a seat at this table. Everyone. She pulled her wrist free. Sarah, Tom hissed. What the hell are you doing? She grabbed a rag, dropped to her knees, started picking up glass with trembling fingers. Blood pounded in her ears. Her breath came short and fast. When she stood up, the biker was watching her. She grabbed a menu, grabbed a water glass, walked around the counter. 12 steps. 12 steps that felt like 12 miles. Welcome to Carter's. Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat. Tried again. Welcome to Carter's Diner. You want a table or the counter? The biker stared at her. Up close, he looked older than she'd thought. 60, maybe 65. Deep lines carved into his face. Gray streaking through his beard. Dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in weeks. Counter's fine, he said quietly. His voice surprised her. She'd expected gravel and threat. What she got was exhaustion. Pure bone-deep exhaustion. Follow me. She led him to the far end of the counter, away from everyone else. He sat down heavy, the stool groaning under his weight. That's when she saw it. White plastic, hospital bracelet, peeking out from under his leather cuff. Sarah's stomach dropped. She knew those bracelets. She'd worn one herself for 37 days straight, sleeping in a plastic chair next to her mother's bed, watching the monitors beep slower and slower until they didn't beep at all. Coffee, her voice came out softer now. Black. He didn't touch the menu. And whatever's fast. Been writing since 3 a.m. She poured. Her hands had stopped shaking. Long way still to go. He wrapped his fingers around the mug. Big hands, scarred knuckles, calluses thick as leather, but trembling. Definitely trembling. Riverside Memorial, he said. My daughter's there. The word cracked in his mouth, broke apart like ice on a spring river. Sarah set down the coffee pot. She's sick, she asked softly. He nodded, didn't look up. Leukemia, been fighting it 8 months now. His voice dropped to almost nothing. Her mama called last night, said I better hurry. Sarah felt something twist in her chest. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. He finally looked up. His eyes, pale gray, red-rimmed wet at the edges, met hers. Thank you, he said. Most people just see the jacket. Toast and eggs, Sarah said. 4 minutes, I'll make it fast. She turned toward the kitchen. 3 steps. That's all she got. The front door slammed open so hard the little bell ripped off and bounced across the floor. Officer Danny Crawford filled the doorway. Behind him, Deputy Rachel Torres. Both in uniform, both armed, both staring at the biker like they'd found a rat in their kitchen. Well, well, well. Danny's voice boomed across the diner. Loud, aggressive. The voice of a man who wanted everyone to hear. Look what crawled into our little town. The biker didn't turn around. His shoulders tensed, but he kept his eyes on his coffee. Danny swaggered forward, boots heavy on the tile, hand resting on his holster like he was hoping for an excuse. Don't see your kind around here much, Danny said. He stopped 2 stools down from the biker, close enough to crowd, far enough to draw. Passing through, that's right, the biker's voice stayed level. Just getting breakfast. Then I'm gone. Breakfast, Danny laughed, short, ugly. Hear that Rachel the Hell's Angel wants breakfast. Rachel shifted near the door. Her eyes darted between Danny the biker and Sarah. She looked uncomfortable. She didn't say anything. Danny, Sarah stepped forward. He's a customer. He hasn't done anything. Danny's head snapped toward her. His smile didn't reach his eyes. You know what that patch means, Zarda? That skull on his back. He's just passing through. That patch means drugs, means guns, means murder. Danny leaned against the counter, invading the biker's space. That patch means trouble everywhere it goes. That's what your customer is, trouble. The biker set down his coffee cup, slowly, carefully. You don't know anything about me, he said quietly. Danny's face reddened. What did you say? I said you don't know me. The biker turned on his stool, faced Danny directly. His voice stayed calm, but there was iron underneath. I'm a paying customer. I haven't broken any laws, haven't threatened anyone. I just want breakfast so I can get to the hospital before... He stopped, swallowed, couldn't finish. Before what? Danny mocked. Before your drug deal, before you meet up with your little biker gang, before my daughter dies. The words hung in the air like smoke. Danny blinked. For 1 second, 1 tiny second, something human flickered across his face, then it vanished. That's convenient, Danny said coldly. Dying daughter, that's a new one. Usually it's a sick mother or a funeral. You people always have a sob story ready. It's not a story. The biker's voice cracked. Her name is Jessica Brennan. She's 31 years old. She has a 4-year-old son who doesn't understand why mommy can't come home. And her mother called me last night, crying so hard I couldn't understand half of what she said except one thing. Hurry, Jack. Please hurry. Sarah felt tears burning in her eyes. Danny didn't flinch. Show me some Danny, Rachel spoke up from the door, her voice uncertain. Maybe we should just ID now. The biker Jack reached slowly into his jacket. Danny's hand dropped to his gun fingers wrapping around the grip. Easy, Jack said. Just my wallet. He pulled out a worn leather billfold, removed his license, held it out. Danny snatched it. Jack Brennan, he read loudly. Austin, Texas. Long way from home, Jack. 15 hours. I've been riding 15 hours straight. Danny tapped the license against his palm, thinking. Then he smiled, that slow, cruel smile that made Sarah's skin crawl. Tell you what, Jack, I'm gonna run this. Check for warrants. Check for priors. He tucked the license in his shirt pocket. You sit tight. That's my property. And this is my town. Danny turned toward the door. Danny, wait. Sarah stepped forward. Her voice came out stronger than as she felt. You can't just take his ID. He hasn't done anything wrong. Danny stopped, turned slowly. Excuse me. He's a customer. He came in for coffee and breakfast. That's not a crime. Wearing that patch is crime enough. No, it's not. You can't arrest someone for their clothes. The diner had gone dead silent. Mrs. Patterson had stopped breathing. Tom Jenkins was shaking his head slowly, eyes wide with warning. Danny stepped towards Sarah. His voice dropped low. Dangerous. You're defending him, this criminal. I'm defending a man who hasn't done anything wrong. Sarah's heart was hammering, but she held her ground. A man whose daughter is dying, a man who just wants to eat breakfast and get to the hospital. What crime is that, Danny? What law did he break? Danny's face twisted. You don't know what you're getting into, Sarah. These people, Sarah cut him off. That's all you keep saying. These people. But I don't see these people. I see one man, one tired, scared, heartbroken man who's trying to get to his daughter before it's too late. And you want to arrest him for a patch on his jacket. That patch represents, I don't care what it represents. Sarah's voice rose, cracked, but she kept going. My grandfather built this diner 60 years ago. He served everyone who walked through that door. Black, white, rich, poor didn't matter. You know what he used to say? Everyone deserves a seat at this table. Everyone, Danny. Not everyone except the people you don't like. Not everyone except the people who scare you. Everyone. Danny stared at her. His jaw worked. His hand flexed on his holster. You're making a big mistake, he said quietly. Biggest mistake of your life. Maybe, but I'm not making it today. Silence. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. Danny reached into his pocket, pulled out Jack's license, threw it on the counter. This isn't over, he said, not by a long shot. He turned and walked out. Rachel followed without a word. The door swung shut behind them. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Mrs. Patterson burst into tears. Sarah's knees went weak. She grabbed the counter to keep from falling. Her whole body started shaking, hands, shoulders, everything. Ma'am, she looked up. Jack Brennan was watching her with something she couldn't name. Wonder maybe, or disbelief. What you just did. His voice was rough, thick with emotion. Nobody's done that for me in 30 years. Nobody. Sarah managed a shaky smile. My grandfather would have done the same thing. Your grandfather was a hell of a man. Yeah, her eyes stung. He was. She turned toward the kitchen, wiped her eyes with her apron, took 2 deep breaths. Toast and eggs, she called out. Coming right up. Behind her, she heard Jack pick up his coffee cup, heard him take a long, slow drink. She didn't see the tear that ran down his weathered cheek. The eggs were almost done when the broken bell that shouldn't have worked, jingled weakly. Sarah looked up. A young woman stood in the doorway, mid-20s, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, pretty face, hard eyes. Crystal Hawkins, Danny Crawford's girlfriend. Well, well, Crystal's voice dripped honey and venom. Look at our little hero. Sarah kept her eyes on the grill. What do you want, Crystal? Just came to see the show. Crystal slid into a booth, not ordering anything. Danny called me, said you lost your mind, said you're defending criminals now. He's not a criminal. He's a Hell's Angel, Sarah. Same thing. It's really not. Crystal laughed. You know what the girls at the salon are saying? They're saying Sarah Mitchell finally cracked. All that stress from the failing diner, the bills piling up, her mama's death, it broke something in her head. Made her crazy. Sarah's jaw tightened. I'm not crazy. No, Crystal leaned forward. Then why are you throwing your whole life away for some biker trash you've never met? Because it's the right thing to do. Crystal stared at her for a long moment. Then she stood up. Wrong answer, honey. She walked toward the door. Danny's gonna make your life hell. And when he does, don't say nobody warned you. She left. Sarah stood frozen at the grill. The eggs were starting to burn. She didn't notice. Ma'am, she turned. Jack was watching her. His face had gone hard. That woman, he said quietly. She's trouble. I know. She's going to spread this all over town. I know. Jack stood up slowly, reached for his wallet. I should go before I cause any more damage. Sit down, he blinked. What? I said sit down. Sarah's voice came out stronger than she expected, firmer. You came here for breakfast. You're getting breakfast. I don't care what Crystal Hawkins says. I don't care what Danny Crawford thinks. You're going to eat, and then you're going to get to that hospital and see your daughter. That's what's happening today. Understand? Jack stared at her. Slowly, he sat back down. Yes, ma'am, he said softly. Sarah turned back to the grill, scraped off the burnt eggs, started fresh. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. 20 minutes later, Jack Brennan pushed away an empty plate. Best eggs I've had in years, he said, and I'm not just saying that. Sarah smiled, a real smile this time. My grandfather's recipe, secrets in the butter. He teach you to cook. He taught me everything. Sarah refilled its bottle. How to cook, how to run a business, how to treat people. She paused. How to stand up for what's right even when it costs you. Jack nodded slowly. Sounds like a man I would have liked to know. You would have. He would have liked you too. Even with the jacket, especially with the jacket. Sarah leaned against the counter. He was in Korea, came home messed up like a lot of guys did. People looked at him different after that, called him crazy, dangerous, said he wasn't fit to be around normal folks. She shrugged. So he opened a diner. Said if people were going to judge him, no matter what, he might as well give them good food while they did it. Jack laughed, a real laugh, deep and warm. It transformed his face, made him look 10 years younger. Smart man. The smartest. The door opened. Sarah's smile died. Tom Jenkins walked out, throwing money on the counter without looking at her. Goodbye, Sarah, he said coldly. Don't expect me back. He left without another word. Mrs. Patterson stood up next. She wouldn't meet Sarah's eyes. I'm sorry, dear, she whispered. I can't. I have to think about my reputation. You understand. She hurried out. One by one, the remaining customers followed, each one avoiding Sarah's gaze, each one leaving without a word. Within 5 minutes, Carter's diner was empty, just Sarah and Jack alone in the silence. I'm sorry, Jack said quietly. This is my fault. No, Sarah's voice was firm. This is their fault. They're choosing fear over kindness. That's on them, not you. But your business will survive or it won't. Sarah shrugged. Either way, I did the right thing. I can live with that. Jack stood up, pulled out his wallet, counted out bills and set them on the counter. Sarah looked down. $50 for a $6 breakfast. That's too much. It's not nearly enough. Jack met her eyes. You stood up for me when nobody else would. When everyone else saw a monster, you saw a man. You have no idea what that means. Sarah's throat tightened. Just get to your daughter. That's all the thanks I need. Jack nodded. He turned toward the door, stopped, turned back. What's your name? Your full name? Sarah Mitchell. Sarah Mitchell. He repeated it like he was memorizing it. I won't forget that. Ever. He walked out. Sarah listened to his motorcycle roar to life, listened to it fade into the distance. Then she sat down on the floor behind the counter, wrapped her arms around her knees and let the tears come. The next 3 hours were the longest of Sarah's life. No customers came, not one. She cleaned the same counter 15 times, reorganized the sugar packets, counted the money in the register, barely enough to cover next week's electricity bill. Her phone buzzed constantly, texts from people she'd known her whole life. Heard what you did, can't believe you'd side with criminals. My kids used to love your pancakes, not anymore. Your grandfather would be ashamed. That last one hit hardest. Sarah threw her phone across the counter and watched it skid into the wall. The door opened. Sarah looked up, hoping for a customer. Danny Crawford walked in, alone this time. No uniform, jeans and a t-shirt, off duty. But his eyes were the same, cold, calculating. Closing time, Sarah, he said, sliding onto a stool. It's 2 p.m. Not what I meant. He smiled that cruel smile. I talked to some people today, the health inspector, the fire marshal, the bank that holds your mortgage. He leaned forward. Funny thing about small towns, everyone knows everyone, and everyone owes everyone favors. Sarah's blood went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying this is your last chance. Danny's voice dropped to almost a whisper. You apologize. Publicly. You admit you made a mistake defending that biker trash. You tell everyone you were confused, emotional, not thinking straight. And maybe I'll call off my friends. Well, I mean, if I don't. Health inspection fails. Fire code violations. Bank calls in your loan. Danny shrugged. Carter's diner closes within a month. And everyone will know it's because you chose a Hell's Angel over your own community. Sarah felt the floor tilt under her feet. Everything she'd worked for, everything her grandfather had built, gone because of one choice, one right choice. Well, Danny pressed, What's it gonna be? Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, saw the cruelty underneath the smile, the small, petty man drunk on small, petty power. And suddenly she wasn't afraid anymore. Get out, Danny's smile flickered. What? I said get out of my diner. Sarah's voice was steady as stone. You're not welcome here anymore. You're making a mistake. No, I made the only right choice I could make, and I'd make it again. She pointed at the door. Now get out. Before I call the state police and tell them about a local officer using his badge to threaten and extort business owners. Danny's face went red, then white, then red again. You'll regret this, he hissed. Maybe, but not today. He stood up so fast his stool crashed backward. For one terrifying moment, Sarah thought he might hit her. Instead, he just smiled. Enjoy your last month, Sarah. Make it count. He walked out. Sarah didn't move for a long time. Night fell on Carter's diner. Sarah sat alone in a booth staring at the empty tables, the empty counter, the empty parking lot outside. Her phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number. She almost didn't look, but something made her pick it up. The angels don't forget. JB. Sarah read the message 3 times. She didn't know what it meant. She would find out tomorrow. Morning came gray and cold. Sarah unlocked the diner at 6 a.m. same as always, turned on the lights, started the coffee, pretended everything was normal. Nobody came. 7 a.m., 8, 9. The parking lot stayed empty. The booth stayed empty. The silence pressed against her ears like cotton. At 10:15, she heard something. Distant at first, like thunder rolling across the plains, but the sky was clear. The sound grew louder, closer, deeper. A rumble that vibrated in her chest shook the windows, rattled the cups on their hooks. Sarah walked to the front door, pushed it open. Her heart stopped. Motorcycles, coming down Main Street, one after another, a river of chrome and black leather stretching back as far as she could see. 50 bikes, 100, 150. People were coming out of shops, out of houses, gathering on sidewalks with their mouths hanging open. The bikes kept coming, 200, maybe more. They pulled into the parking lot, lined up along the street, filled every space, every gap, every inch of available ground. Riders dismounted, removed helmets, stretched legs stiff from long rides. They were all wearing the same patch, Death's Head, Grinning Skull, Hell's Angels. Sarah couldn't breathe. The lead rider dismounted. He was massive, 6.5 feet tall, shoulders like a linebacker's silver beard, braided down his chest. Patches covered every inch of his jacket. And across his back above the Death's Head, one word, Reaper. He removed his sunglasses. He looked at the diner. He looked at Sarah. He started walking toward her. The crowd on the sidewalk had grown to 100 people. Danny Crawford's patrol car sat at the corner lights off engine running. He didn't get out. Reaper stopped 3 feet from Sarah, his eyes, dark, ancient, full of secrets, fixed on her face. You, Sarah Mitchell. His voice was deep, commanding. The voice of a man who'd led armies. Sarah nodded. Her voice had abandoned her. Reaper's face broke into a smile. Jack Brennan's daughter made it through the night, he said. Doctors say the new treatment's working. She's gonna live. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. And Jack told us what you did. Reaper turned to look at the sea of bikes, the army of riders, the stunned townspeople watching from the sidewalks. Told us about a woman who stood up to power, who protected a stranger, who did what was right when everyone told her not to. He turned back to Sarah. The Hell's Angels don't forget, he said. We never forget. Not kindness, not cruelty, not courage. He extended his hand. So we're here to say thank you, all of us, and to make sure nobody in this town forgets what you did, what you are. Sarah looked at his hand, looked at the 200 bikers waiting behind him, looked at the crowd on the sidewalk, Mrs. Patterson with her hand over her heart, Tom Jenkins with tears on his cheeks, Danny Crawford frozen in his patrol car. She reached out, took Reaper's hand. Welcome to Carter's Diner, she said. And for the first time in 2 days, she smiled. Reaper's hand was rough as sandpaper, warm, strong, the kind of hand that had seen war and come out the other side. Sarah held on to it like a lifeline. You okay? Reaper asked quietly. His voice was gentle now, different from the commanding boom of a moment ago. Sarah nodded, couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down her face and she didn't even care. Behind Reaper, 200 bikers waited. Engines off now, silent, watching. Good. Reaper squeezed her hand once, then let go. He turned to face his people. Brothers and sisters, his voice carried across the parking lot like thunder. This woman, Sarah Mitchell, stood up for one of ours. She faced down the law. She faced down her own town. She risked everything she had for a man she'd never met, a stranger in a leather jacket. He paused, let the words sink in. That's not something we forget. That's not something we walk away from. Jack Brennan is family, and now, he turned back to Sarah. So is she. A roar went up from the crowd, 200 voices shouting as one, fists pumping the air, engines revving in salute. Sarah's knees buckled. A woman caught her. Mid-50s, silver streaks in her dark hair, leather vest covered in patches. Her eyes were kind. Easy, honey. The woman's voice was warm. I'm Linda, Reaper's wife. You look like you haven't slept in days. I haven't, Sarah admitted. Her voice came out as a croak. Well, that ends today. Linda put an arm around her shoulders. You got 200 people here who want to buy breakfast. Think you can handle that? Sarah laughed. It came out half sob, half giggle. I don't have enough eggs. Linda grinned. Roy, get over here. A massive bald man with a beard down to his chest lumbered over. Yeah. Take 20 guys to the grocery store. Buy everything. Eggs, bacon, bread, butter, coffee, all of it. Roy nodded. On it. He turned and started pointing at riders. You, and you. Let's move. Sarah watched them go, 5 motorcycles peeling out of the lot heading toward town. This was actually happening. Come on. Linda steered her toward the diner door. Let's get you inside before you fall over. The next hour was chaos, beautiful, wonderful, impossible chaos. Bikers flooded into Carter's diner. They filled every booth, every stool, every inch of standing room. They spilled out onto the sidewalk, onto the parking lot, into the street. Sarah worked the grill like she'd never worked it before. Eggs flying, bacon, sizzling toast, popping. Linda appeared beside her, tying on an apron. I waitressed for 15 years before I married that big idiot, she said. Put me to work. You don't have to. Honey, I want to. Now where are your order pads? 3 more women joined them, Wave's girlfriends, sisters of the club. They moved through the crowd like professionals taking orders, pouring coffee, cracking jokes. The cash register started to fill, then overflow. Sarah had to empty it twice into a paper bag she shoved under the counter. Sarah. Roy appeared at the kitchen window, arms loaded with grocery bags. Where do you want this stuff? Back room, through that door. Got it. He disappeared. More groceries arrived, then more, then more. The back room started to look like a warehouse. Sarah flipped pancakes and tried not to cry. Around 11, she heard shouting from outside. She looked up. Through the window, she could see a crowd gathering on the sidewalk across the street. Townspeople. 50, maybe 60 of them. Standing in a tight cluster, arms crossed, faces hard. Martha Collins stood at the front. Sarah. Linda appeared at her elbow. We got a situation. I see it. You want me to handle it? No, all. Sarah wiped her hands on her apron. This is my town, my problem. She walked out the front door. The noise hit her like a wall. Motorcycle engines, laughter, music playing from somewhere. But underneath it all, she could feel the tension. 2 worlds colliding on Main Street. Martha Collins stepped forward as Sarah approached. This is unacceptable, Martha said loudly. Loud enough for everyone to hear. You've turned this town into a circus, a biker rally. Do you have any idea what you've done? Sarah stopped 3 feet away. I made breakfast, Martha. That's what I've done. You've brought criminals into our streets. Dangerous people. Drug dealers. Murderers. A murmur went through the biker crowd. Sarah saw Reaper moving toward them, his face darkening. She held up a hand. Stop. He paused. Martha. Sarah's voice was calm, steady. Do you see any drugs? Do you see any violence? Do you see anyone doing anything except eating pancakes and drinking coffee? That's not the point. That's exactly the point. Sarah took a step closer. These people came here to say thank you, to support a business that's been part of this community for 60 years. They've spent more money in the last hour than I've made in the last month. They've been polite, respectful, and kind, which is more than I can say for some of my regular customers. Martha's face reddened. How dare you? How dare I? Sarah's voice rose. How dare you, Martha? How dare you judge people you've never met? How dare you spread rumors and lies? How dare you turn this town against me for doing the right thing? The right thing? Martha laughed bitterly. You defended a Hell's Angel against our own police. I defended a father whose daughter was dying, a man who just wanted breakfast, a human being who deserved to be treated with basic dignity. Sarah's eyes burned. That's not a crime, Martha. That's called being a decent person. The crowd had gone quiet, bikers on one side, townspeople on the other, everyone watching. Martha opened her mouth. She's right. The voice came from behind Martha. Everyone turned. Tom Jenkins stepped forward. His face was pale. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. She's right, he repeated. I was there. I saw the whole thing. That man didn't do anything wrong. He was polite, respectful, just wanted coffee and eggs. Tom's voice cracked. And I told Sarah to send him away. I was scared. I was wrong. He walked past Martha, walked across the invisible line separating the two crowds, stopped in front of Sarah. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm so sorry. Can you forgive an old fool? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. There's nothing to forgive, Tom. She hugged him. A murmur went through both crowds. Then Mrs. Patterson stepped forward. Then Joe Larkin. Then a dozen others crossing the line joining Sarah's side. Martha Collins stood alone. This isn't over, she hissed. Yes, it is. Sarah wiped her eyes. This is exactly over. The town's made its choice, Martha. You can stand there and be angry, or you can come inside and have some pie. But either way, I've got customers to serve. She turned and walked back into the diner. Behind her, she heard Linda's voice. You heard the lady? Pie's on special today. Who's hungry? Laughter, actual laughter from both sides. Sarah didn't see Martha Collins leave. But when she looked up 10 minutes later, the sidewalk was empty. The lunch rush was insane. Bikers and townspeople sat side by side, sharing tables, sharing stories, sharing pie. Old Tom Jenkins was deep in conversation with a biker named Tiny, 6'5", 300 pounds, covered in tattoos about the best fishing spots in the county. Mrs. Patterson was teaching a group of leather-clad women her secret recipe for apple crumble. Even Deputy Rachel Torres showed up, out of uniform, hesitant. She slid into a booth near the back and ordered coffee with shaking hands. Sarah noticed. She poured the coffee herself. You okay? She asked quietly. Rachel looked up. Her eyes were red. I should have stopped him. Danny, I should have said something. Why didn't you? Because I was scared. Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. He's got connections, Sarah. Everywhere. The sheriff owes him favors. The mayor's his uncle. Half the department is afraid of him. She shook her head. I wanted to do the right thing. I didn't know how. Sarah sat down across from her. You're doing it now, she said softly. You're here. That counts for something. Does it? It's a start. Rachel wrapped her hands around the coffee cup. He's not going to stop. Danny, what you did, it embarrassed him. In front of everyone. He'll never let that go. I know. He's already making calls. The health inspector is coming tomorrow. Fire marshal the day after. He's going to find something. He always finds something. Sarah's stomach tightened. Let him try. You don't understand. Rachel leaned closer. Danny Crawford has destroyed people, businesses, lives. He ran the last mechanic out of town on fake drug charges, put a family in bankruptcy over a zoning dispute. He's not just mean, Sarah. He's dangerous. Then why are you telling me this? Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Because what you did, standing up for that man, Bizdain, it was the bravest thing I've ever seen. She met Sarah's eyes. And because I'm tired of being afraid. Sarah reached across the table, squeezed Rachel's hand. Then help me. How? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. Together. Rachel held her gaze. Then slowly she nodded. Okay. Together. At 2 o'clock, Reaper found Sarah in the kitchen. Got a minute? Sarah wiped sweat from her forehead. Barely. What's up? Come with me. There's someone who wants to meet you. She followed him out the back door. A man sat on an overturned crate near the dumpster, younger than most of the bikers. 30, maybe 35. Dark hair, sharp eyes, clean-shaven. He didn't look like a biker at all. He looked like a lawyer, because he was one. Sarah Mitchell. The man stood and extended his hand. I'm David Chen, club attorney. Sarah shook his hand. Attorney. Every organization needs legal representation. David smiled slightly. Even the ones people think are outlaws. He pulled out a card, handed it to her. I understand you're expecting some trouble from local law enforcement. Sarah glanced at Reaper. He nodded. Word travels fast in our family, Reaper said. Rachel told Linda. Linda told me. Sarah's cheeks flushed. I didn't ask for help. You don't have to ask. David opened a briefcase, pulled out a folder. I've already filed a complaint with the state police regarding Officer Crawford's conduct. Harassment, abuse of authority, attempted extortion. I have witness statements from 6 club members who were present during your confrontation. Sarah's mouth fell open. What? Additionally, David pulled out another document. I've contacted a friend at the state health department. Any inspection conducted under suspicious circumstances will be flagged for review. Same with fire safety. If Officer Crawford tries to use government agencies to retaliate against you, he'll find himself answering to people a lot higher up the food chain. I can't afford pro bono, David smiled. The club takes care of its friends, Miss Mitchell. You took care of Jack Brennan. Now we take care of you. Sarah felt her knees go weak again. Why, she whispered to him, why would you do all this for me? Reaper put a hand on her shoulder. Because that's what family does. The afternoon sun was starting to dip when Sarah heard the commotion. She pushed through the crowded diner to the front window. A black pickup truck had pulled up across the street. Danny Crawford sat behind the wheel. He wasn't alone. 4 men climbed out of the truck bed. Big men, mean-looking, not cops. Something worse. Sarah's blood ran cold. Reaper. She didn't turn around, didn't have to. She felt him appear beside her. I see them. Who are they? Trouble. Danny stepped out of the truck. He was smiling. That same cruel smile she'd seen in the diner. But bigger now. Bolder. He started walking toward Carter's. The bikers noticed. Conversations stopped. Engines went quiet. 200 heads turned toward the approaching threat. Danny stopped in the middle of the street. Well, his voice carried across the distance. Looks like we've got ourselves a party. Too bad nobody invited me. Reaper stepped out of the diner. Sarah followed. You're not welcome here, Crawford, Reaper said calmly. Not welcome, Danny laughed. This is my town. I'm welcome anywhere I want to be. He looked past Reaper at Sarah. Hey there, sweetheart. Miss me? Sarah said nothing. I've been thinking about our little conversation. Danny took another step forward. About all those things I said would happen to your cute little diner. And I realized, why wait? Why drag things out? He snapped his fingers. The 4 men started moving, not toward the diner, toward the motorcycles. What are you doing? Sarah's voice was sharp. Just having a little inspection. Danny grinned. Making sure all these bikes are street legal. You know how it is. Safety first. One of the men pulled out a knife. Sarah's heart stopped. That's far enough. The voice came from behind Danny. He spun around. Jack Brennan stood in the street. He looked different than before. Rested, clean. His beard was trimmed, his leather jacket polished. And his eyes, those tired, broken eyes Sarah remembered, were blazing with something new. Fury. Well, Danny recovered quickly. If it isn't the man of the hour, how's your daughter? Alive. Jack walked closer. No thanks to you. Such a touching story, really pulled at my heartstrings. Danny's voice dripped sarcasm. Too bad I don't have one. We noticed. Jack stopped 5 feet away. Here's what's going to happen, Crawford. You're going to get back in your truck. You're going to take your boys with you, and you're going to leave Sarah Mitchell alone. Danny laughed. Or what? You'll rough me up in front of witnesses with your whole club watching. He shook his head. I don't think so, old man. See, I'm the law around here, and there's nothing. You're not the law. A new voice, everyone turned. A car had pulled up behind Danny's truck, unmarked. Government plates. A man stepped out to yell, gray suit, badge on his belt. Agent Thomas Webb. The man flashed credentials. State Bureau of Investigation. Danny Crawford, you're under arrest. Danny's face went white. What? On what charges? Extortion, abuse of power, harassment, conspiracy to commit property damage. Webb smiled coldly. Your buddy at the health department flipped on you about an hour ago. Sang like a bird. We've got phone records, emails, text messages. Enough to put you away for a good long while. This is insane. You can't. I am. Webb pulled out handcuffs. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Danny's 4 friends were backing away slowly, heading for the truck. They didn't make it. Club members moved to intercept, not threatening, just present. A wall of leather and chrome. Going somewhere, boys? Tiny asked pleasantly. Stick around. You might want to see this. Danny was cuffed now, Webb marching him toward the car. This isn't over, Danny screamed. You hear me? This isn't over. Webb pushed him into the back seat, slammed the door. The agent walked over to Sarah. Miss Mitchell, he extended his hand. I understand you've been having a rough couple of days. Sarah shook his hand in a daze. How did you know David Chen? Webb nodded toward the attorney who was leaning against the diner wall with a satisfied smile. He and I go way back. When he called and told me what was happening, he shrugged. Some things you just can't let slide. But the timing, you got here so fast. I was already in the area. Webb smiled slightly. Investigating some complaints about Officer Crawford. Turns out you weren't his first victim, just his last. He tipped his hat. Take care of yourself, Miss Mitchell, and thank you for having the courage to stand up. He walked back to his car, climbed in, drove away. Danny Crawford was gone. Sarah stood in the middle of Main Street, surrounded by 200 bikers staring at the empty space where her nightmare had been. It was over. It was actually over. Sarah, she turned. Jack Brennan stood there, smiling. There's someone I'd like you to meet. He stepped aside. Behind him, a woman sat in a wheelchair, thin, pale, an IV line trailing from her arm. But her eyes were bright, alive, and she was smiling. Jessica, Sarah breathed. Hi. Jessica's voice was weak but warm. Dad told me everything. I had to meet the woman who saved him. Sarah walked forward, knelt beside the wheelchair. I didn't save anyone. I just made him breakfast. No. Jessica reached out, took Sarah's hand. You gave him hope. When he walked into your diner, he was ready to give up. He'd driven 15 hours to say goodbye to me. To give up. Her eyes glistened. But you showed him that there was still kindness in the world. Still good people. Still reasons to keep fighting. Sarah couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face. The doctors think I'm going to make it, Jessica whispered. Early days, but the new treatment is working. I'm going to watch my son grow up. I'm going to ride with my dad again. She squeezed Sarah's hand. Because of you, Sarah broke down. She pulled Jessica into a hug, gentle, careful, mindful of the IV. And Jessica hugged her back, both of them crying, both of them holding on. Jack stood behind them, Reaper beside him, Linda, Roy, Tiny, 200 bikers, and half the town of Riverside, all watching, all silent, all together. When Sarah finally stood up, she found her voice. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Jack put his hand on her shoulder. Just keep being who you are. That's enough. That's more than enough. Sarah wiped her eyes. Well, she said shakily, I guess I better get back to work. I've got a lot of hungry people to feed. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Speaking of which, Reaper stepped forward. He was holding something, a brown paper package wrapped carefully. This is from all of us. Sarah unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a leather vest, black, supple, beautiful. Across the back, embroidered in gold thread, Carter's Diner. Below that, smaller friend of the angels, and at the bottom, one word, protected. Sarah's hands trembled as she held it up. I don't know if I deserve this. You don't get to decide that. Linda smiled. We do, and we say you do. Sarah looked at the vest, looked at the crowd, looked at Jack and Jessica and Reaper and Linda, and all the faces, biker and townsperson alike, watching her with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Respect. She slipped the vest on. It fit perfectly. How do I look? She asked. Like family, Reaper said. The crowd erupted, cheering, applause, engines revving, horns honking. Someone started playing music. Someone else started dancing. And in the middle of it all, Sarah Mitchell stood in her grandfather's diner, wearing a leather vest that marked her as protected, surrounded by people who had started as strangers and become something more. Family. She thought about her grandfather, about what he would say if he could see this, about the little diner he built with his own hands, the dream he poured his heart into. Everyone deserves a seat at this table. She looked up at the sky, whispered the words, I hope I made you proud, Grandpa. And somewhere, somehow, she could have sworn she heard him answer. You did, sweetheart. You did. The sun was setting over Riverside. Sarah stood on the front steps of Carter's diner watching the colors bleed across the sky. Orange, pink, purple, gold. Most of the bikers had gone, headed back to their homes, their lives, their own families. But a few remained. Reaper and Linda, Jack and Jessica, Tiny and Roy, and a handful of others. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The diner needed repairs. The town needed healing. There would be paperwork and questions and 100 things to figure out. But tonight was for gratitude. Hey, Sarah turned. Jack stood behind her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. Thought you could use this. She took the cup, breathed in the steam. Thank you for everything. Thank you, Jack sipped his coffee, for seeing me when nobody else would. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset. What happens now? Sarah asked. Now, Jack smiled. Now you live. You run your diner. You take care of your town. And whenever you need us. He touched the vest on her shoulders. We'll be there. Always. Sarah nodded slowly. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Good. Jack's voice was gentle. That means you're paying attention. But here's the thing about fear, Sarah. It only wins if you let it. And you don't let anything win. Sarah laughed softly. I don't know about that. I do. Jack met her eyes. I've been riding for 40 years. Met a lot of people. Good people, bad people, everything in between. But I've never met anyone quite like you. Someone who would risk everything, her business, her reputation, her safety for a stranger. You weren't a stranger. You were a father. I was a Hell's Angel. You were both. Sarah shrugged. The jacket doesn't make the man. The man makes the man. Jack was quiet for a long moment. Your grandfather teach you that? Yeah, Sarah smiled. He did. Inside the diner, Jessica was laughing at something Tiny said. Linda was helping Mrs. Patterson clean up. Rachel Torres was deep in conversation with Reaper. Her face animated, her fear finally gone. A community, built from chaos, born from courage. Will you come back, Sarah asked, to visit? Try and stop us, Jack grinned. Jessica's already planning a road trip. Wants to bring her son. Show him where his grandpa's life changed. His life changed here. My whole life changed here. Jack's voice dropped. I walked into this diner ready to die. Ready to say goodbye to my daughter and give up on everything. But you reminded me that there's still good in this world. Still people worth fighting for. He set down his coffee. You saved me, Sarah Mitchell. Don't ever forget that. He hugged her. Sarah hugged him back. And when they pulled apart, both of them had tears in their eyes. Same time next year, Jack asked. Same time next year, Sarah promised. He walked back inside. Sarah stayed on the steps watching the last light fade from the sky. Tomorrow would come, with all its challenges and fears and uncertainties. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid. She had her diner, her town, her family old and new, and she had something else, something her grandfather had given her, something no one could ever take away, the courage to do what was right, even when it cost everything, even when the whole world stood against her. She touched the leather vest on her shoulders. Friend of the angels, protected. Sarah Mitchell smiled and walked back inside to join her family. 3 weeks later, Carter's diner was busier than it had been in years. Sarah wiped down the counter, watching the morning rush with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Real pride. The booths were full, the counter was packed. Truckers, families, teenagers, retirees. Even a few bikers passing through, always stopping to pay respects to the woman who wore the golden vest. Order up, Linda called from the kitchen. Sarah grabbed the plates. 3 eggs over easy bacon, crisp toast with extra butter. Table 7, the Hendersons. Married 42 years. Came in every Tuesday without fail. Here you go, folks. Mr. Henderson smiled up at her. Sarah, this place hasn't looked this good since your grandfather was running it. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. That means everything. She meant it. The bell above the door jingled. Sarah looked up automatically the way she always did now. Checking, watching. Old habits from bad days. Rachel Torres walked in, out of uniform again. But something was different. Her face was tight. Her eyes were worried. Sarah's stomach dropped. Coffee, she asked, keeping her voice casual. Please. Rachel slid onto a stool at the end of the counter, away from everyone else. Sarah poured, set down the cup, waited. We need to talk, Rachel said quietly. Not here after your shift. What's wrong, Shook? Not here. Rachel's hand trembled slightly as she lifted her cup. Just meet me at the old bridge, 6 o'clock. Come alone. She left a $5 bill on the counter and walked out without touching her coffee. Sarah watched her go. The pride she'd felt moments ago curdled into something darker, something cold. Whatever was coming, it wasn't good. The hours crawled by. Sarah couldn't focus. She burned 2 orders, dropped a plate, snapped at Linda for no reason, then apologized 3 times in 5 minutes. Girl, what is wrong with you? Linda finally demanded. You've been jumping at shadows all day. Nothing. I'm fine. You're lying. Linda crossed her arms. I've known you 3 weeks, and I can already tell when you're lying. You get this little twitch above your eyebrow. Sarah touched her face. I do not. You absolutely do. Now spill. Sarah hesitated, looked around the diner. Everyone was eating, talking, laughing. Normal. Happy. She pulled Linda into the back room. Rachel came by this morning. She wants to meet me. Says we need to talk. About what? She wouldn't say, but she looked scared, Linda. Really scared. Linda's face darkened. You think it's about Danny? He's in jail, has been for 3 weeks. Jail doesn't stop a man like that, not really. Linda shook her head. Men like Danny Crawford have long arms, long memories, friends in low places who owe him favors. Sarah felt the cold in her stomach spread. What should I do? Meet her, see what she knows, but don't go alone. She said to come alone. And I'm saying that's stupid. Linda pulled out her phone. Boy, I'm calling Reaper. Linda, no, I don't want to drag them back into this. Honey, Linda's voice softened. You're wearing our vest. That means you're family. And family doesn't let family walk into trouble alone. She hit a button. Reaper, we've got a situation. At 5:45, Sarah pulled up to the old bridge. It was a quiet spot, a mile outside town. Nobody came here anymore, not since the new highway went in 15 years ago. Just rusted girders and overgrown weeds and the slow gurgle of the creek below. Rachel's car was already there. Sarah parked, checked her mirrors, looked around. No other cars, no movement. Just Rachel standing by the bridge railing, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold despite the warm evening air. Sarah got out, walked toward her. You came alone? Rachel asked without turning. Yes. A lie, but Reaper and Tiny were parked half a mile back waiting. Ready. Good. Oh, Rachel finally turned. Her face was pale, drawn. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. I need to tell you something I should have told you from the beginning. Okay. Danny Crawford isn't working alone. Rachel's voice shook. He never was. He's just the muscle, the face, but there's someone else, someone higher up. Sarah's blood ran cold. Who? His uncle, Mayor Thompson. The name hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. Mayor Richard Thompson, 63 years old, served 4 terms, beloved by the community, chairman of the county board, deacon at the First Baptist Church. That's impossible, Sarah breathed. It's not. Rachel started pacing. Danny was just the enforcer, the mayor. He's the one who decides who gets run out of town, who gets protected, who gets destroyed. He's been running Riverside like his personal kingdom for 20 years. Why are you telling me this? Rachel stopped. met Sarah's eyes. Because he knows about me. Sarah's heart hammered. What? He knows I've been talking to you, to the state investigators, to anyone who'll listen. Rachel's voice cracked. He called me last night. Didn't threaten me directly. Too smart for that. Just said he hoped my mother was feeling better. Asked about her address at the nursing home. Said he might stop by to visit. Tears spilled down Rachel's cheeks. He's going to hurt her, Sarah. He's going to hurt my mother to get to me. Sarah grabbed Rachel's hands. We won't let that happen. You can't stop him. Nobody can stop him. He owns this county. The sheriff, the judges, the council. Everyone owes him something. Not everyone. Sarah squeezed tighter. Not me, not the angels, not Agent Webb. Webb's gone, reassigned. The mayor made some calls, pulled some strings. Rachel laughed bitterly. That's what he does. That's all he does. Pull strings. And the rest of us, we're just puppets. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Where's your mother now? Shady Pines, the nursing home on Oak Street. Okay. Sarah pulled out her phone. We're going to move her tonight, somewhere safe. Where the mayor has eyes everywhere. Not everywhere. Sarah hit a number. Linda, it's me. I need a favor. A big one. 20 minutes later, Sarah was sitting in Mayor Thompson's office. She hadn't planned it, hadn't thought it through. But after she'd called Linda, after she'd arranged for Rachel's mother to be moved to a safe house in Austin, something had snapped inside her. Fear had become fury, and fury had brought her here. The mayor's secretary had tried to stop her. Sarah had walked right past, through the outer office, through the mahogany doors, into the inner sanctum where Richard Thompson conducted his empire. He looked up from his desk, surprised, then amused. Miss Mitchell. He leaned back in his leather chair. What an unexpected pleasure. Cut the crap. Thompson's eyebrows rose. Excuse me? I know what you are. Sarah's voice was steady, cold. I know what you've been doing, running people out of town, destroying businesses, using Danny as your attack dog. Thompson's smile didn't waver. Those are serious accusations. They're true. You have proof, Sarah hesitated, just for a second. Thompson's smile widened. I didn't think so. He stood up slowly, walked around his desk, positioned himself between Sarah and the door. You know, your grandfather was a lot like you, stubborn, righteous, thought he could change things. Sarah's jaw tightened. Don't you talk about my grandfather. Oh, but I knew him quite well, better than you think. Thompson's voice dropped. He and I had an arrangement, an understanding. He kept his head down, minded his business, and I let his little diner survive. Simple as that. You're lying. Am I? Thompson chuckled. Ask yourself, Miss Mitchell, how did Carter's Diner stay open all those years when every other business on Main Street closed? How did your grandfather always pass his inspections, always get his permits, approved them, always avoid the troubles that plagued everyone else? Sarah felt sick. He made a deal. With me. Thompson was close now. Too close. And for 40 years he kept his end of the bargain. But you, he shook his head, you just couldn't leave well enough alone. My grandfather was a good man. Your grandfather was a practical man. There's a difference. Thompson returned to his desk, sat down, folded his hands. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to your little diner. You're going to forget everything Deputy Torres told you, and you're going to keep your mouth shut for the next 40 years, just like he did. And if I don't, Thompson smiled, that same cold smile Danny had inherited. Then accidents happen. Fires start. People get hurt. He shrugged. It would be such a shame if something happened to that lovely young woman in the wheelchair. What's her name, Jessica? She's been doing so well in her recovery. Sarah's blood turned to ice. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? Thompson picked up a pen, started writing. I've been running this county since before you were born. I've buried better people than you, smarter people, stronger people. He looked up. So yes, Miss Mitchell, I would dare, and I will if you force my hand. Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The walls were closing in. She turned, walked toward the door. Smart choice, Thompson called after her. I knew you'd see reason. Sarah paused with her hand on the doorknob. You're wrong, she said quietly. About what? She turned, met his eyes. About my grandfather. He wasn't like you. He wasn't practical. He was patient. Her voice strengthened. He knew what you were. He documented everything. Every payment, every threat, every deal you made with every person in this county. Thompson's smile flickered. He kept records, in a safe place where you'd never find them. Sarah's heart was pounding, but her voice stayed steady. He was waiting for the right moment, the right person, someone brave enough to use them. You're bluffing. Am I? Sarah opened the door. Ask yourself, Mayor Thompson, how did a state investigator show up in Riverside the exact day Danny made his move? How did he know exactly what to look for, where to look? Thompson's face had gone pale. Those files are somewhere you'll never find. And if anything happens to me, to Jessica, to anyone I care about, Sarah smiled. They go straight to the FBI. She walked out. Her hands didn't start shaking until she reached her car. Sarah drove straight to the diner. Linda was waiting, so was Reaper and Jack, and a dozen other club members all wearing their cuts, all looking ready for war. What happened? Linda demanded. You were supposed to wait. You were supposed to let us handle it. I couldn't wait. Sarah's voice was hollow. He threatened Jessica. He threatened all of you. Jack's face went dark. He what? Thompson, the mayor. He's the one behind everything. Danny was just his puppet. Sarah sank into a booth, and I may have just made things a lot worse. Reaper sat down across from her. Tell us everything. She did. When she finished, the silence was deafening. You told him there were files, Reaper said slowly. Records. Proof. I lied. Sarah put her head in her hands. There are no files, no records. I made it up. I needed him to be scared. I needed him to back off. That was brave, Jack said quietly. That was stupid. Linda shook her head. If he calls your bluff, I know. Sarah's voice cracked. I know, I couldn't let him win. I couldn't let him threaten Jessica, threaten all of you. Not after everything. Silence again. Then Reaper stood up. David, the attorney, materialized from somewhere. Sarah hadn't even noticed him. You heard all that, every word. Options. David was quiet for a moment, thinking. The mayor's smart. He won't have left a paper trail. Not one that leads directly to him, he paused. But Danny might have. People like Danny, they're not as careful. They keep insurance, records, proof that the boss ordered what they did. Danny's in county lockup, Rachel said. She'd slipped in at some point, still shaky but determined. State facility, awaiting trial. Can you get us in? Reaper asked. Rachel hesitated. Maybe. I still have friends, people who owe me favors. Then we talk to Danny. Reaper's voice was hard. We offer him a deal. Testify against his uncle and we persuade the state to go easy on him. He'll never go for it, Sarah said. He's loyal, stupid, but loyal. Loyalty fades when you're facing 20 years. David smiled thinly. Trust me, I've seen harder men than Danny Crawford break when they realize nobody's coming to save them. Sarah looked around the room, at Reaper, Linda, Jack, Rachel, David, Tiny, Roy, all of them, ready to fight for her. Why? She whispered. Why do you keep helping me? Jack reached across the table, took her hand. Because you helped me, when I had nothing, when I was nothing. You saw a man, not a monster. His eyes glistened. And because my daughter is alive because of you. My grandson still has his mother because of you. We don't forget, Reaper added. Not kindness, not loyalty, not family. Sarah's throat tightened. Okay, she said finally. Let's talk to Danny. 3 days later, Sarah walked into county lockup. Rachel had pulled strings, called in every favor she had, got Sarah on the visitor list as Danny's spiritual counselor. It was almost funny, almost. The visiting room was small, gray, a metal table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs, a guard outside the door. Danny was already waiting. He looked different in the orange jumpsuit, smaller somehow. The swagger was gone, the cruelty muted. He just looked tired and scared. Well, his voice cracked. The diner girl. Come to gloat. No, Sarah sat down. I came to offer you a deal. Danny laughed, hollow, empty. A deal? That's rich. You're the reason I'm in here. No, your uncle is the reason you're in here. Sarah leaned forward. He used you, Danny. For 20 years, he used you to do his dirty work, to threaten people, destroy businesses, run families out of town. And now that you're caught, where is he? Danny's jaw tightened. Has he visited, called, sent a lawyer? Sarah shook her head. He hasn't, because he's too busy covering his own tracks. Burning evidence? Making sure that when you go down alone. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Sarah pulled out a piece of paper, slid it across the table. That's a list of every business your uncle destroyed in the last 10 years. Every family he displaced. Every life he ruined. She paused. Your name is on almost every page, Danny, but his name nowhere, not once. Danny stared at the paper. He set you up, Sarah continued, from the very beginning. You were always going to be the fall guy, the one who took the blame while he walked free. She leaned closer. Is that really what you want, to spend the next 20 years in prison while Richard Thompson keeps running, Riverside keeps hurting people, keeps winning? Danny's hand was shaking. What do you want from me? His voice was barely a whisper. The truth, everything you know, every deal, every payment, every order he gave you. Sarah's voice softened. In exchange, I'll talk to the state, get your sentence reduced, maybe even get you transferred somewhere closer to home. And if I don't, then you rot, alone, while your uncle lives like a king. Silence. Danny stared at the table, at the list, at his own shaking hands. He'll kill me, he whispered. If I talk, he'll have me killed. Not if he's in prison too. Danny looked up. His eyes were wet. I never wanted this, he said. I never wanted any of this. I wanted him to be proud of me. My uncle, my family. I wanted to matter. I understand. Sarah's voice was gentle now. I really do, but Danny, you can still matter. You can still do something good. Something right. She touched his hand. Help me stop him. Help me save this town. Danny was quiet for a long time. Then slowly he nodded. Okay, he whispered. I'll talk. 2 weeks later, Mayor Richard Thompson was arrested on the steps of City Hall. 16 counts of corruption, 12 counts of extortion, 8 counts of conspiracy. Evidence provided by his own nephew backed up by records the state had been quietly gathering for months. Sarah watched from across the street. Reaper stood beside her, Linda on the other side, Jack, Jessica, Rachel. The whole family. Thompson was in handcuffs now, being led to a waiting car. His face was purple with rage, his voice hoarse from screaming threats that nobody was listening to anymore. It's over, Linda said softly. It's really over. Not quite. Sarah watched until the car disappeared around the corner. There's still a lot of healing to do, a lot of trust to rebuild, Snow. But you'll do it. Jack squeezed her shoulder. If anyone can, it's you. Sarah looked at her town, at the people emerging from shops and houses, blinking in the sunlight like they'd been living underground, at the main street that had been dead for so long, finally starting to breathe again. No, she said, we'll do it, together. Jessica wheeled herself forward, took Sarah's hand. You know, she said, when my dad first told me about you, I thought he was exaggerating. Nobody's that brave. Nobody stands up like that. Your dad exaggerates a lot. Yeah, Jessica smiled, but not about you. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. Come on, she said. Let's get back to the diner. I've got a lot of coffee to make and a lot of people to feed. They walked together down Main Street, Sarah Mitchell and her family. A family built from strangers, forged in crisis, bound by something stronger than blood. Kindness. The bell above the door jingled as they walked into Carter's diner. And for the first time in 60 years, the whole town followed. 6 months had passed since Mayor Thompson's arrest. Sarah stood behind the counter of Carter's diner watching the breakfast rush, with a smile she couldn't quite believe was real. The place was packed, every booth, every stool, a line forming at the door. 6 months ago, she'd been counting pennies, wondering if she could make it another week. Now she was wondering if she needed to hire more staff. Order up, Linda called from the kitchen. She'd stayed, moved to Riverside with Reaper, bought a little house on Oak Street, said she was tired of the road, said she'd found something worth staying for. Sarah grabbed the plates. Pancakes with extra syrup for the Martinez kids, eggs and toast for old Mrs. Chen, who had started coming every morning since her husband passed. Coffee and pie for the group of truckers in Booth 7 regulars, now always asking for Sarah by name. "You look happy," Rachel said from her usual spot at the counter. "I am happy." Sarah refilled her coffee. "Weird, right? Weird good." Rachel smiled. She'd changed too. Resigned from the sheriff's department, enrolled in law school, said she wanted to help people for real this time, not just follow orders. The bell jingled. Sarah looked up. Her heart stopped. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, thin, gray hair cropped close to his skull. A face she'd seen in photographs but never in person. Her father. Robert Mitchell hadn't set foot in Riverside in 23 years. Not since he'd walked out on Sarah and her mother. Not since he'd left them with nothing but debt and silence. The diner went quiet. Everyone knew. In a small town, everyone always knew. Sarah's hands started shaking. She set down the coffee pot before she dropped it. "What are you doing here?" Her voice came out flat, cold. Robert took a step forward, hesitant, uncertain. He looked old. Older than he should, worn down by years of whatever life he'd chosen over his family. "I heard what happened," he said. His voice was rough, unused. "What you did, standing up to that biker, to the police, to the whole damn town." He swallowed. "I read about it in the paper, saw it on the news, and I thought..." "You thought what?" "I thought maybe it was time." Sarah laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Time for what?" "To come back to pretend like the last 23 years didn't happen." "No." Robert's voice cracked. "Time to apologize." The diner was dead silent. Sarah felt Linda's hand on her shoulder. Steady, grounding. "You should leave," Sarah said quietly. "Please." Robert took another step. "Just give me 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes. You walked out on us." Sarah's voice rose. "You left Mom alone. You left me alone. She worked herself to death, keeping this diner open while you were off, doing God knows what with God knows who. And you want 5 minutes. I know. I know what I did." Tears were streaming down Robert's face. "I was a coward, a selfish, stupid coward, and I've spent every day since then hating myself for it." "Good, you should." "I should, Robert nodded. "I do. But Sarah, I'm dying." The words hung in the air. Sarah felt the ground shift under her feet. "What?" "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Robert's hands were shaking. "Doctor says I've got maybe 3 months. 4 if I'm lucky." He laughed hollowly. "Not that I've ever been lucky." Sarah couldn't speak, couldn't move. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Robert continued. "I don't deserve it, I know that. But I needed to see you. One last time. To tell you that I'm sorry. That walking out on you was the biggest mistake of my life. That not a day went by when I didn't think about you." "Then why didn't you come back?" "Because I was ashamed, but..." Robert's voice broke. "Because I knew what I'd done was unforgivable. Because I thought you'd be better off without me. I would have been better off with a father." "I know." Robert wiped his eyes. "I know. And I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." Sarah looked at this man, this stranger, this ghost from a past she'd tried so hard to bury, and she felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no relief, just emptiness. 5 minutes, she said finally. "That's all you get." She led him to a booth in the back. They talked, or rather, Robert talked. Told her about the years he'd been gone, the jobs he'd lost, the marriages he'd destroyed, the slow grinding realization that he'd thrown away the only thing that ever mattered. Sarah listened, didn't interrupt, didn't react. When the 5 minutes were up, she stood. "Thank you for telling me," she said, "but I can't give you what you're looking for. I don't know if I ever can." Robert nodded slowly. "I understand." "Good." Sarah turned to leave, stopped, turned back. "Where are you staying?" "Motel on Highway 12. That place is a dump." It's what I can afford. Sarah hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away, to let him rot in whatever hole he'd dug for himself. But then she thought about Jack, about Jessica, about second chances and forgiveness, and all the things she'd been preaching for the last 6 months. There's a room above the diner, she heard herself say. It's small, but it's clean, and it's free. Robert's eyes widened. Sarah, don't. She held up a hand. Don't thank me. Don't apologize again. Don't do anything except be quiet and stay out of my way. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I don't want to become the kind of person who turns away a dying man. She walked back to the counter. Linda was waiting. You okay? Oh, no. Sarah picked up the coffee pot. But I will be. 3 days later, Jack Brennan pulled up on his motorcycle. Sarah was wiping down tables when she heard the familiar rumble. She looked up, a smile already forming, and walked out to meet him. Didn't expect you for another week, she said. Change of plans. Jack dismounted. His face was serious. We need to talk. Sarah's smile faded. What's wrong? Not here. Jack looked around. Is there somewhere private? They went to the back office. Sarah's grandfather's old desk, still covered with papers and receipts, in a photograph of Carter's Diner on opening day 1962. Jack closed the door. Danny Crawford escaped. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. What? How? In prison transfer 2 days ago. The convict was ambushed. 3 guards dead. Danny and 4 other inmates gone. Sarah's legs went weak. She sat down heavily on the old leather chair. The authorities think it was organized. Someone on the outside, someone with resources. Jack's jaw tightened. Someone who wanted Danny out. Thompson. It has to be Thompson. Thompson's in maximum security. No visitors, no phone calls. No way he could have organized this. Then who? Jack was quiet for a moment. Thompson has a son. Sarah's blood ran cold. Michael Thompson, 42 years old, lives in Dallas, runs a private security company. Jack paused. The kind of company that employs mercenaries. Oh my God. He's been quiet for months, staying under the radar, but our people in Texas, they've been hearing things. Rumors. Jack met her eyes. He blames you, Sarah, for what happened to his father, and he's not the forgiving type. Sarah felt the walls closing in. What do I do? Right now, nothing. Stay alert. Stay careful. Don't go anywhere alone. Jack put his hand on her shoulder. Reaper's already mobilized. We've got people watching the roads, watching the town, watching you. You can't protect me forever. We can try. Jack's voice softened. Your family's Sarah, and we take care of family. Sarah nodded slowly, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Danny Crawford was out, and he was coming for her. The next 2 weeks were the longest of Sarah's life. Every sound made her jump. Every stranger made her tense. Every shadow held a threat. Rachel moved into the apartment above the diner. Just temporarily, she said. Just until things calmed down. Sarah didn't argue. Linda started carrying a gun, a small .38 revolver tucked into her waistband. Old habits, she said with a grim smile. The bikers came and went, different faces every day, always watching, always ready. But Danny never showed. No sightings, no rumors, no signs. Maybe he ran, Rachel said one evening. Maybe he's in Mexico by now, living under a fake name, staying hidden. Danny's not that smart, Sarah replied, and he's not that patient. Then where is he? Sarah didn't answer because she didn't know, and that was the worst part. 2 weeks and 3 days after Danny's escape, Robert Mitchell died. It happened quietly, in the middle of the night, in the small room above the diner that Sarah had given him out of obligation rather than love. She found him in the morning, peaceful. Still, a slight smile on his face like he'd finally found the rest he'd been seeking. On the nightstand was a letter. Sarah, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that these last weeks, watching you from a distance, seeing the woman you've become, they were the happiest of my miserable life. You are your mother's daughter, strong, kind, brave, everything I never was. There's a box under the bed. It belonged to your grandfather. He gave it to me the night I left, told me to keep it safe. I've been carrying it with me ever since. I never opened it, never felt I had the right. It belongs to you now. everything in it. Use it however you see fit. I love you. I know that doesn't mean much, but I wanted you to know. Dad Sarah's hands trembled as she pulled the box from under the bed. It was old, wooden, locked with a small brass key that was taped to the lid. She opened it, and her whole world changed. Inside were files, dozens of them, neatly labeled, carefully organized. Thompson Richard, 1978-1998. Crawford Danny, 1995-2003. Mitchell Robert, personal. And at the bottom, a note in her grandfather's handwriting, for Sarah. When the time is right. Sarah started reading. Hours passed. The coffee went cold. The diner opened and closed without her. By the time she finished, she understood everything. Her grandfather had known, from the very beginning. He documented every threat, every bribe, every deal Thompson had made to build his corrupt empire. And Robert Mitchell, her father, hadn't been a coward. He'd been a witness. Thompson had forced him out of town, threatened to kill Sarah and her mother if he didn't leave, if he didn't take these files and disappear. For 23 years, Robert Mitchell had been running, hiding, protecting a secret that could have destroyed them all. Not because he was weak, because he was afraid. Afraid for his daughter. Sarah sat in the small room surrounded by paper and wept. For her father, for her grandfather, for all the years she'd spent hating a man who had sacrificed everything to keep her safe. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the empty room. "I'm so sorry, Dad." She buried him 3 days later. The whole town came. Reaper and the Angels, Linda and Rachel, the Martinez family, Mrs. Chen, the truckers from Booth 7. Even Tom Jenkins, leaning on a cane, now tears streaming down his weathered face. "I knew your father," Tom said quietly. "Back when we were young, he was a good man, Sarah. Better than most people ever knew." Sarah nodded. I know that now." The service was simple, a few words, a few prayers, a few flowers on a grave next to her mother's, and then it was over. Sarah stood by the grave long after everyone else had left. "I forgive you," she said softly. "I forgive you, Dad. And I promise, I'll finish what you started." That night, Sarah called David Chen. "I have something you need to see," she said. "Something that changes everything." David arrived the next morning with 2 federal agents. They spent 6 hours going through the files, making copies, taking notes. When they were done, the lead agent, a woman named Martinez, looked at Sarah with something like awe. "Do you understand what you have here? Evidence. Not just evidence, a roadmap, names, dates, transactions. This goes way beyond Thompson, way beyond Riverside." Martinez shook her head. "This is a 20-year conspiracy involving judges, politicians, law enforcement. This is RICO. This is life sentences. This is..." She trailed off. "This is everything," Sarah finished. "Yes," Martinez stood. "We'll need you to testify when the time comes." "I'll be there." Martinez paused at the door. "Your grandfather, your father, they were brave men." "They were," Sarah smiled sadly. "I just wish I'd known it sooner." 1 week later, the federal indictments came down. 17 arrests across 3 states. Judges, sheriffs, politicians, businessmen. A network of corruption that had been festering for decades finally exposed to the light. Michael Thompson was among them. So was Danny Crawford. They found him in a cabin outside Austin, waiting for orders that would never come, surrounded by guns he'd never get to use. Agent Martinez called Sarah with the news. "It's over," she said, "really over this time. Danny's going back to prison, maximum security, no chance of parole, and Michael Thompson, he's looking at 30 years minimum." Sarah closed her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank your grandfather and your father." Martinez paused. "They're the real heroes here." Sarah hung up the phone. She walked to the wall where her grandfather's apron still hung. Next to it now was the leather vest Reaper had given her. And next to that, a new addition, a photograph of Robert Mitchell smiling young, full of hope. "We did it," Sarah said softly. "All of us, together." The bell above the door jingled. Sarah turned. Jessica Brennan walked in. No wheelchair now, walking on her own 2 feet, a little unsteady, but walking. Behind her, Jack, Reaper, Linda, Rachel, Tiny, Ray, David Chen, Agent Martinez, Tom Jenkins, Mrs. Chen, the Martinez family. Everyone, What is this? Sarah laughed, wiping her eyes. This reaper said, stepping forward, is a celebration. He was carrying a banner, unrolled it across the counter. Thank you, Sarah, from your family. Sarah burst into tears. They came one by one, hugging her, thanking her, telling her what she'd meant to them, what she'd done for them, how she'd changed their lives. Jessica was last. You know, she said, taking Sarah's hands. My dad told me something once. He said the measure of a person isn't what they do when things are easy. It's what they do when things are hard. Sounds like Jack. It is, Jessica smiled. And by that measure, Sarah Mitchell, you're the best person I've ever known. Sarah hugged her tight. I'm just a woman who makes breakfast, she whispered. No. Jessica pulled back, eyes bright with tears. You're so much more than that. The party lasted until midnight. Music and laughter and stories and tears. The whole town, it seemed, had crammed into Carter's diner. Bikers and businessmen, old-timers and newcomers, enemies who had become friends. A community reborn. At the end of the night, Sarah stood on the front steps alone. The stars were out. Thousands of poem, more than she'd ever noticed before. You did good, kid, she turned. Jack stood behind her, 2 beers in his hand. He offered one. She took it. Thanks. For what? For believing in me, from the beginning. Sarah sipped her beer. That first day when you walked into the diner, I was so scared. I almost told you to leave. But you didn't. No, she smiled. I didn't. They stood in comfortable silence, looking up at the stars. What happens now? Sarah asked. Now. Jack took a long drink. Now you live. You run your diner. You take care of your town. He paused. And you remember. Remember what? That courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're terrified. Jack met her eyes. That's what you taught all of us. That's what you reminded me of when I'd forgotten. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes again. I didn't teach anyone anything. I just made breakfast. No, Jack shook his head. You made something a lot more valuable than that. He gestured at the diner at the town, at the stars above. You made a family. He raised his beer. To Sarah Mitchell. She clinked her bottle against his. To family. They drank, and for the first time in her life, Sarah Mitchell felt truly, completely home. 1 year to the day, Sarah Mitchell stood in front of Carter's diner looking at something she'd never imagined she'd see. A line out the door, at 7 in the morning, on a Tuesday. You gonna stand there all day or help me with these pancakes? Linda's voice cut through her thoughts. Sarah laughed, wiped her eyes, and pushed through the door. The diner was chaos. Beautiful, wonderful, impossible chaos. Booths packed, counter full. Waitresses, 3 of them now, weaving between tables like dancers. The kitchen humming with activity, the grill sizzling. The coffee pots never empty. 1 year ago, Sarah had been alone. Broke. Ready to give up. Now she had this. Table 12 needs more syrup, Rachel called out. She graduated law school early, top of her class, had job offers from 3 major firms, turned them all down, said she wanted to help people in Riverside first, said there was still work to do. On it, Sarah grabbed the syrup bottle and headed for table 12. The Martinez family, all 5 of them. The kids had grown so much. Little Maria was starting kindergarten next month. Baby Carlos wasn't a baby anymore, walking, talking, getting into everything. Miss Sarah, Maria jumped up and hugged her legs. Mama says you're famous now, Sarah laughed. I'm not famous, sweetheart. Yes, you are. Maria's eyes were wide. There was a man with a camera. He took pictures of the diner. Mama said he was from a big newspaper. Sarah looked at Mrs. Martinez, who shrugged apologetically. New York Times, she said. They're doing a story about small towns, about hope. She smiled. About you. Sarah felt her cheeks flush. I didn't agree to any interviews. You didn't have to. The whole town is talking. They can't get enough of the woman who stood up to everyone and won. The bell jingled. Sarah looked up. A man with a camera around his neck. A woman with a notepad. Both looking around the diner with the hungry eyes of journalists who'd found their story. Miss Mitchell. The woman stepped forward. I'm Jennifer Hayes, New York Times. We spoke on the phone last week. I told you I wasn't interested. And I told you this story is bigger than you. Jennifer smiled, but it wasn't unkind. What happened here, what you did, people need to hear it. The whole country needs to hear it. Sarah hesitated. Give her a chance, Linda said quietly, appearing at her elbow. Sometimes the best stories are the ones we don't want to tell. Sarah looked around the diner, at the people eating, laughing, living, at the photographs on the wall, her grandfather, her father, her mother, at the leather vest hanging beside them, at everything she'd built and everything she'd lost and everything she'd found. Fine, she said finally, but you eat first. Nobody interviews hungry. Jennifer blinked, then laughed. Deal. The interview lasted 3 hours. Jennifer asked about everything. Jack, Danny, Thompson, the mayor's arrest, the bikers, the town, the healing. Sarah answered honestly. Sometimes her voice cracked, sometimes tears fell, but she kept going. When it was over, Jennifer closed her notebook. Can I ask you one more question, off the record? Sure. Why did you do it that first day, when Jack walked in? Why didn't you just send him away like everyone told you to? Sarah thought about it, really thought. Because my grandfather taught me that everyone deserves dignity. Even the people others are afraid of. Especially the people others are afraid of. She paused. And because I saw something in Jack's eyes, something broken, something that needed kindness more than anything else. And you thought you could help? No, ma'am. Sarah shook her head. I thought I should try. That's all any of us can do. Try. Jennifer nodded slowly. Thank you, Miss Mitchell, for everything. She left. Sarah watched her go, wondering what would come of it. She didn't have to wonder long. 2 weeks later, the article came out. The woman who saved a town, how one act of kindness started a revolution. It went viral. Within hours, Sarah's phone was ringing off the hook. News networks, talk shows, podcasts, book publishers, movie producers. This is insane, Rachel said, staring at Sarah's phone as it buzzed continuously on the counter. CNN wants an interview, so does Ellen, and wait, is that Netflix? I don't want any of this. I know. Rachel silenced the phone. But maybe this isn't about what you want. Maybe it's about what people need. What do you mean? Look around, Sarah. Rachel gestured at the diner at the town visible through the windows. Look what happened here. Look what one person's courage did. Don't you think other people need to hear that story? Other towns, other communities that are dying, giving up, losing hope. Sarah was quiet. You didn't just save Riverside, Rachel continued softly. You showed everyone that it's possible, that one person can make a difference, that kindness isn't weakness, it's the strongest thing in the world. The bell jingled. Jack Brennan walked in. He wasn't alone. Behind him came Jessica, walking steadily now, no trace of the wheelchair. Behind her, a little boy, 4 years old, dark hair, bright eyes. Tommy, Jessica's son. The grandson Jack had almost never gotten to know. Grandpa says we're having pancakes, Tommy announced loudly. With chocolate chips. The diner laughed. Jack scooped up the boy, set him on a stool at the counter. Heard you're famous now, he said to Sarah with a grin. Don't start. Too late. It's all anyone's talking about. Jack sat down beside Tommy. The woman who changed the world, one cup of coffee at a time. I didn't change the world. No. Jack pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. 2 million shares, Sarah. 2 million. People in Japan are reading about you, India, Brazil, Australia, everywhere. Sarah stared at the numbers. That's not possible. It's very possible. Jessica slid onto a stool on the other side. You're a symbol now, whether you wanted to be or not. A symbol of what? Hope. Jessica smiled. Courage. The idea that one ordinary person can stand up against injustice and win. That's not nothing, Sarah. That's everything. Sarah felt tears threatening again. I'm just a waitress, she whispered. No, Jack took her hand. You're a lot more than that. You always were. The door opened again. Reaper walked in, Linda beside him. Tiny, Roy, a dozen more angels behind them. What is this? Sarah looked around confused. Did I miss a memo club meeting? Reaper said. His voice was serious, but his eyes were smiling. Special session, one agenda item. He walked to the center of the diner. Everyone went quiet. 1 year ago today, a woman named Sarah Mitchell made a choice. She could have turned Jack away, could have stayed quiet, could have protected herself. Reaper paused. Instead, she stood up. For a stranger. For justice. For what was right. He looked at Sarah. That choice saved Jack's life. It saved his daughter's life. It saved this whole town. And it reminded all of us, every member of the Hells Angels, what we're supposed to stand for. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a patch. Sarah's breath caught. It was small, gold thread on black leather, a single word of family. This is the highest honor our club can give, Reaper said. It's only been awarded 3 times in our history to people who embodied everything we believe in: loyalty, courage, brotherhood. He stepped forward. Today we award it a 4th time. He pressed the patch into Sarah's hand. Welcome to the family, Sarah Mitchell. For real this time. The diner erupted. Bikers cheering, townspeople clapping, Tommy jumping up and down on his stool. Even the New York Times photographer, who had apparently snuck back in, was snapping pictures furiously. Sarah couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at the patch, at Reaper, at Jack and Jessica, and all the faces she'd come to love. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep being who you are, Linda said softly. That's all we want. All any of us want. Sarah nodded slowly. I can do that. More cheers, more applause, and then cutting through the noise, a small voice. Miss Sarah? She looked down. Tommy was tugging at her apron. Yeah, sweetheart. Can I have my pancakes now? With extra chocolate chips? The whole diner burst into laughter. Sarah wiped her eyes, smiled, picked up the boy and set him on her hip. Coming right up, little man. Coming right up. That night after the celebration finally wound down, Sarah sat alone in the empty diner, just her and the photographs on the wall. She'd added new ones over the past year. Jack and Jessica at Jessica's remission party, Reaper and Linda's wedding, small ceremony, big reception held right here at Carter's, Rachel's law school graduation, Tommy's birthday party, and in the center 3 frames side by side, her grandfather, her father, her mother, the ones who had started it all. I hope you're proud, she whispered. I hope wherever you are, you can see what we built, what you taught me to build. Silence, then softly the bell above the door jingled. There was no one there, no wind, no explanation, but Sarah smiled anyway. I thought so, she said quietly. I love you too. She stood, straightened the photographs, touched each frame gently. Then she walked to the door ready to lock up. A car was pulling into the lot. Old car, rusty, a woman behind the wheel, 2 kids in the back seat, all of them looking exhausted, scared, lost. Sarah recognized that look. She'd seen it in Jack's eyes 1 year ago. The woman got out slowly, approached the diner like she wasn't sure she was allowed. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I saw the lights. I know you're closed. But my kids haven't eaten since yesterday and I don't have anywhere else to go and... Come in, the woman stopped. What? Come in. Sarah held the doors open, smiled. Everyone's welcome at Carter's. Everyone deserves a seat at this table. The woman burst into tears. Sarah led them inside, sat them in a booth, went to the kitchen, eggs, toast, bacon, orange juice for the kids. When she brought out the food, the woman tried to give her money. I only have a few dollars. I'm sorry. It's on the house. I can't accept you can. Sarah sat down across from her. And when you're back on your feet, you can pay it forward. Help someone else who needs it. That's how it works. That's how we keep the circle going. The woman stared at her. You're her, she whispered. You're the woman from the article. The one who... I'm just Sarah, she smiled. Now eat, before it gets cold. The family ate. Sarah watched them, feeling something warm spread through her chest. This was why she did it. This was why she kept going. Not for fame or articles or Netflix deals, for moments like this. For people who needed kindness and found it in a little diner in a small town that had learned together what it meant to be a community. When the family finished, Sarah made them stay. I've got rooms, she said, upstairs. Nothing fancy but clean. Safe. You can stay as long as you need. Why are you doing this? The woman, Maria, her name, was asked through tears. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. No, Sarah agreed, but someone did this for a friend of mine once, a stranger who walked in looking like trouble, And that one act of kindness changed everything. She smiled. Maybe this will too. Maria hugged her, tight, desperate, the kind of hug that said more than words ever could. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're welcome. Sarah hugged her back. Now get some rest. Tomorrow we figure out the next step. The next morning, Sarah woke to find something waiting on the counter. A letter, hand-delivered during the night. She recognized the handwriting immediately. Jack, Sarah. By the time you read this, I'll be on the road, heading to see some old friends in California. Don't worry, I'll be back. I always come back. But I wanted to write this down, put it on paper, because some things are too important to just say. 1 year ago, I walked into your diner ready to die. My daughter was dying. My life was empty. I had nothing left but a jacket and a motorcycle and 1,000 miles of road. And then I met you. You didn't see a biker. You didn't see a threat. You saw a man, a father, a human being in pain. That moment, that single moment of kindness changed everything. Because of you, my daughter lived. Because of you, I got to hold my grandson. Because of you, I remembered why life is worth living. But it wasn't just me you saved. I've watched you this past year. Watched you heal this town. Watched you bring people together. Watched you take strangers and make them family. You did something I've never seen anyone do before. You loved people into being better. Not through force, not through power, just through kindness, patience, the simple radical act of treating everyone with dignity. That's your superpower, Sarah Mitchell. That's what makes you extraordinary. Not the articles, not the fame, not even the leather vest with the gold patches. Just you. Being you, every single day. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know where the road will take me next. But I know this. Wherever I go, whatever happens, I will carry you with me. In my heart, in my actions. In every moment of kindness, I pass on to someone else. That's your legacy. Not a diner, not a story, not a moment in time. A ripple, spreading outward, touching lives you'll never know, changing the world in ways you'll never see. That's what you did, Sarah. That's who you are. Thank you for everything. Your brother Jack read the letter 3 times, then she folded it carefully, placed it in the drawer with her grandfather's letters. Her father's final note, the treasures she would keep forever. Miss Sarah, she turned. Tommy stood at the bottom of the stairs, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Jessica was behind him, smiling. Grandpa Jack left without saying goodbye. Tommy said, his lip trembling. He always says goodbye. Sarah knelt down, took his hands. He'll be back, sweetheart. He always comes back. Promise, promise, she hugged him. And while he's gone, we've got pancakes to make. Think you can help me? Tommy's face lit up. With chocolate chips. With all the chocolate chips, he ran toward the kitchen. Jessica watched him go, then turned to Sarah. He left a letter for me too, she said quietly. Told me to stay, to take care of you. Take care of me, Sarah laughed. I don't need, yes you do. Jessica stepped forward. You take care of everyone, Sarah. But who takes care of you? Sarah didn't answer. That's what I thought. Jessica took her hand. So here's the deal. I'm staying. Tommy's staying. We're family now. And family looks out for each other. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'd like that, she whispered. I'd like that a lot. Jessica hugged her. And in that moment, standing in her grandfather's diner with her new family, Sarah Mitchell finally understood. This was what it had all been for. Not the fights, not the victories, not the fame. This, connection, love, the simple, profound gift of belonging. Her grandfather had known, her father had known, and now she knew too. Everyone deserves a seat at this table. Everyone. The morning rush started like any other day. Tables filling, coffee pouring, eggs sizzling, laughter echoing off the walls. But it wasn't any other day. It was the anniversary. 1 year since Jack walked through that door. 1 year since everything changed. Sarah worked the counter, the grill, the tables, moving like she'd been doing this her whole life. Because she had. Because this was who she was. Around noon, the door opened. A young man walked in. Nervous, uncertain, a backpack slung over his shoulder. Eyes darting around like he wasn't sure he belonged. Sarah recognized that look too. She grabbed a menu, walked over. Welcome to Carter's, she said with a smile. Table or counter? The young man stared at her. You're her, he said. You're really her. I'm Sarah, just Sarah. I read the article. I came from Ohio. He trailed off overwhelmed. I needed to see if it was real, if people like you actually exist. Sarah set down the menu. Why don't you sit down, she said gently. Tell me your story, and let me get you something to eat. The young man, his name was David, she would learn, sat. And he told her about his father who was in prison, his mother who had given up, his town that had turned its back on him, his life that felt like a dead end with no way out. Sarah listened, really listened. When he finished, she took his hand. You know what I've learned this past year, she asked. He shook his head. I learned that it's never too late, never too dark, never too broken. She squeezed his hand. I learned that one moment of kindness can change everything. One person who believes in you can turn your whole life around. But I don't have anyone. You do now. Sarah smiled. You've got me. You've got this whole diner full of people who started exactly where you are. She gestured around the room. Look at them, David. Bikers, lawyers, farmers, teachers, rich and poor, old and young. All of them found their way here. All of them found family. David's eyes were wet. How, he whispered. They walked through that door, just like you. They asked for help, just like you. Sarah stood, and they discovered something amazing, that they weren't alone, that they never had to be alone again. She picked up a menu. Now, what would you like to eat? David stayed for 3 days. By the time he left, he had a job lined up at the local mechanic's shop, a room rented above in the hardware store. A whole town's worth of people who had welcomed him like he'd always belonged. Sarah watched him drive away, a smile on her face. Another one saved? Linda said, appearing beside him. You're getting good at this. I didn't save anyone, I just listened. Fed him, treated him like a human being. Exactly, Linda smiled. That's all any of us ever need. That evening, Sarah hosted a dinner, not at the diner. At her house, the little cottage behind Carter's that she'd finally fixed up, finally made into a home. Everyone came. Jessica and Tommy, Linda and Reaper, Rachel and her mother finally out of hiding. Tiny, Roy, David Chen, Mrs. Martinez and her family, Tom Jenkins, Mrs. Chen, even Maria and her kids who had decided to stay in Riverside. They filled every chair, every corner, every inch of space. They ate, they laughed, they told stories. And when the night grew late and the candles burned low, Reaper stood up. I'd like to make a toast, he said, raising his glass. Everyone quieted. To Sarah Mitchell. He looked at her across the crowded room. Who taught us all something important, something we'd forgotten, something we needed to remember. What's that? Someone asked. Reaper smiled. That the measure of a life isn't what we take. It's what we give. It's not the walls we build. It's the doors we open. He raised his glass higher. To Sarah, who opened her door to a stranger and changed the world. To Sarah, everyone echoed. They drank. And Sarah, surrounded by her family, the family she'd chosen, the family that had chosen her, felt something she'd been chasing her whole life. Peace. Real, true, complete peace. Later that night, long after everyone had gone home, Sarah sat on her porch. The stars were out. Thousands of them. She thought about her grandfather, building this diner with his bare hands, pouring his heart into every brick, every beam, every cup of coffee. She thought about her father, sacrificing everything to protect her, carrying secrets that would have crushed lesser men. She thought about her mother, working until her hands bled, loving without limits, giving without asking. She thought about Jack, walking through that door, broken but not beaten, finding hope in the last place he expected. And she thought about herself, the woman she'd been 1 year ago, scared, alone, ready to give up. The woman she was now, still scared sometimes, but never alone, never giving up. A car pulled into the driveway, Jack's motorcycle. He dismounted slowly, walked up to the porch, sat down beside her. Thought you were in California, Sarah said. I was, Jack smiled, but I forgot something. What? He pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside was a key, old, brass, worn smooth by decades of use. This belonged to your grandfather, Jack said. He gave it to my father 50 years ago. Said it was the key to Carter's diner. The original key. The first one ever made. Sarah's breath caught. My father kept it all these years. Passed it to me when he died. Said I'd know when the time was right to pass it on. Jack placed the key in her hand. That time is now. Sarah stared at the key. I don't understand. Why did Grandpa give this to your father? Because they were friends. Brothers, really. Jack's voice was soft. They rode together, way back, before everything else, before Thompson, before the politics, before any of it. Grandpa was a Hell's Angel, one of the founding members. Jack smiled at her shock. Why do you think he always taught you to look past the jacket, to see the person underneath? He knew Sarah. He always knew. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. Everything made sense now. Everything. This diner, Jack continued, was never just a restaurant. It was a haven, a safe place for anyone who needed it. Your grandfather built it that way on purpose. Built it to be exactly what you've made it. A family. A family. Jack nodded. The biggest, strangest, most beautiful family any of us have ever known. Sarah clutched the key to her chest. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Jack put his arm around her. Thank you, Sarah, for reminding us who we are. And they sat together on the porch watching the stars. Two people who had started as strangers, now family, forever. The next morning, Sarah opened Carter's Diner at exactly 6 a.m. Same as always, same as it would always be. She unlocked the door with her grandfather's key. She flipped on the lights. She started the coffee, and she waited. The first customer walked in at 6:07. A trucker passing through, tired eyes, long road behind him. Welcome to Carter's, Sarah said with a smile. Coffee, please. She poured. He drank. And outside, the sun rose over Riverside, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange and pink. A new day, a new beginning, a legacy continuing. Sarah Mitchell looked around her grandfather's diner, her diner now, and felt the weight of everything she carried. The past, the present, the future, all of it here, all of it hers, and she knew with absolute certainty what her life was for. To open doors, to pour coffee, to treat every person who walked through that door like they mattered. Because they did. Everyone mattered. Everyone deserved kindness. Everyone deserved a seat at the table. The bell above the door jingled. Sarah looked up, smiled. Welcome to Carter's, she said, and meant it with her whole heart, because that was who she was. That was who she would always be. Sarah Mitchell, granddaughter, daughter, sister, friend, the woman who changed the world. One cup of coffee at a time.